Hello everyone, welcome back to the series of videos on operating systems. So this is part 16 and in this video will be dealing with the concept of processes. So here is a list of things that we'll be looking at in this video. So in this video we'll be talking about a process. We'll also like see what is the difference between a process and a program. We'll also see what all components a process structure has. Like we'll talk about the various sections like text section, data section, stack and heap. We'll also see what this program counter means and how it helps in like executing a program. And we'll also like get to know the various states which a process has. We'll also see how this process flows through these states. And at the end, we'll deal with process control block. So in case you guys aren't interested in going through all these concepts, in the description of this video, I'll put timestamps so that you can like jump to any one of the sections which you would like. Yeah, so to begin with, what is a process? So in the early computers, we know that these early computers, they allowed only one program to be like executed at a time. So that particular program had access to like all the system's resources. When we say only one program was allowed to execute at a time, it's like you were able to only run one application at a time. So for example, you could only run this Word document, for example. You can only edit the document at a time, but you cannot play music in the background. So that is like like an example where the early computers allowed only one program to be executed at a time. But currently we have computers which allow multiple programs to be like loaded to memory and also executed concurrently. So here, for example, we can have a Word document. We can like keep on editing the Word document, and in the background there can be another program like music be running in the background. So we can like have multiple programs running at the same time. So informally speaking, a program when you execute it becomes a process. So program is like a static thing, whereas which is like staying or which is like residing on your computer, and whenever you execute that program, it becomes a process. This process term can actually take up different names. For example, if the operating system is like a batch kind of system, so in that case you would call a process as a job. And in case where the system is like a time sharing system, so there you would actually call the process as a task. So what is this difference between process and program? So program, as I said, it is nothing but a file which has like some set of instructions which are stored in it. It is actually a passive entity, which means that it is sitting on your disk idly, uh, and it sits idle on the disk as an executable file. But when we talk about process is a program which is like in its execution phase. So whenever you run this program, it becomes a process. So program when executed, it becomes a process. Now process is not just a passive entity. Process would become an active entity, and it would have like much more stuff going on. When we talk about program, it is just some like text, but process is something which is in RAM and it is getting executed. So that is like a major difference between program and process. Once we have the program running, so we'll have this process. So process is nothing but like something which is there in the memory, but program would actually be on your disk, on your like hard drive. So once we execute the program, it will become a process, and the process in memory, that is in RAM, it will have four components. So it has like four sections. It has text section, it has data section, it has something called the stack section, also the heap section. So when we talk about this text section, as we know, this program should be like executed, and only then it turns out to become a like a process. So whatever code was there in the program, like the text which was there, it forms or it is like stored under this text section. And since this program is like a fixed set of lines, the size of this is fixed. And next is this data section. So this data section will include all the global variables which are used by the program. And apart from this, we also have stack section. So stack section, it includes some temporary data, like for example, the functions parameters or local variables which are used by the code, and also the return addresses. So again, this stack section is also like fixed size. you cannot have a stack like dynamically changing its size. And then we have heap section. So heap section, it is like the memory which gets allocated dynamically. Heap, this can have a dynamic size. So you can actually, during runtime, you can change the size of heap. But that is not the case with these three sections. All these three sections have fixed sizes. We'll deal with stack and heap in a bit more detail in the next video. So for now, we just have to like know that there are four components of a process, and these are the four sections. And these three are like fixed sizes, and this one is like dynamic size section. Apart from these four sections, we also have something called the program counter. So program counter is basically a special register which has like an which has a pointer, or we can like say that it stores the address of the next instruction which needs to be executed. So assuming we have 10 instructions in the program or 10 lines of code in the program, so this program counter initially will be set to be pointing to the very first instruction. So once this instruction is like running, program counter will immediately point to the next instruction. So this program counter is a register which will have the details of which instruction needs to be like executed next. And apart from program counter, every process will have a set of associated registers also. So this is how process looks like the process structure. So 0 to max is like the address space of a process. Every process has its own address space. So this is the address space of a particular process. And apart from that, we have these text, data, heap, and stack section. So for now, we'll just like ignore these directions. We'll deal with heap and stack in the next video in more detail. So as of now, you can think of stack as growing downwards and heap as growing upwards. We'll deal with this in more detail in the next video. So yeah, as we know that program is just a set of like characters. It is just a like text. It has a text file which is like sitting idle on your hard disk, and whenever you like run it, it becomes a process. So this executable file, which is our program, it first needs to be loaded to the RAM, and in order to do that, we'll have to like somehow run this program. So based on the type of user interface, we can like load this program. So for example, if we have a CLI based operating system, the way to like load this program into RAM would be to enter the name of the executable file. So for example, this a.out in Linux based systems, this is the executable file. So when you like just enter this name in like in command line, this gets loaded. The like executable file gets loaded to RAM. But in case of GUI, you'll have to like double click the executable file to load it to RAM. Also, there might be cases where one program, like one single executable file, can have multiple processes running. Like, so for example, it means that it only has like a same text section, but different data stack and heap sections. So if we like consider mail application as an example, the text section, that is the code for this mail application, would be the same, and two computers might be using the same mail program, but the processes which are running on the two computers would be different. Like for example, one computer might send a mail, the other computer which has the same mail program would receive this mail. So it has the same text section, but the other sections might be different. And also every process, as already discussed, has its own program counter which specifies what is like the next instruction which needs to be executed. So here is like a small a diagram which shows how this program is like picked up by operating system based on the like UI, and then operating system would actually load it to RAM, and it becomes this process having all these four sections. So here we'll talk about the various states which a process can like go through. So every process will have like will be in some kind of state. So whenever you like double click a program, it becomes a process. So that process would be like in any one of these five states. So it can be in a new state, it can be in running state, wait state, or terminated state and ready state. So whenever the process is created, we say that it is in new state. And once the process is in new state, it will be like loaded. After it is in new state, it will be loaded to RAM, and it will be like waiting for execution. So that state is called the ready state, where the process is ready to be assigned to the processor, and it is like waiting in memory to like get executed. And once it starts executing, once the instructions in the process are like being executed, it is said to be in the running state. And there might be cases where a process, when it is running, it might need like some IO event to like happen. It might like wait for some IO event to happen. So in that case, we say that the process is like gone into this waiting state. And then finally, when the process execution ends, we say that it has like terminated. So it has like come into this terminated state. There can be like only one process which can be in this running state at a time. If you remember that in the beginning, so we said that multiple programs can be like loaded to memory and can be like executed concurrently. So when we say like multiple programs can be loaded, this is like kind of contradicting this statement, where we are saying that only one process can be running. So here what we mean by multiple programs can be running at the same time is actually multiple programs can be there in the like main memory, but only one program can be in this running state. The other programs which are there in the main memory can be in either waiting state or ready state. So it depends, like it could be waiting for some IO event. There might be one process which is like already ready, but because some other process is running, it is like waiting for CPU. So no two processes can be in the running state, but there might be multiple processes in the main memory which are there in the other states. So here is a process state flow. So whenever a process gets created, it is in this new state, and once it is like ready for execution, it will come into this ready state. So there is something called this scheduler. We'll deal with schedulers in the like future videos. So what the scheduler does is basically it picks up the process from the main memory and gives it to CPU. So once this like scheduling is done, the process moves from ready state to this running state. And if at all there is some kind of interrupt, it will again move back to ready state. So again, about this interrupt, we'll deal in the next in the coming video. And after so once it is like running, there might be some kind of IO event which has happened, and it might be waiting for IO. So some input output like event, it might be waiting. So it will just move from running state to this waiting state. And once that IO event has completed, it will again move back to ready state, and it will be waiting for like CPU. Once it has like gotten the CPU, it will be like running again, and once the entire process is like executed, it will move to this terminated state, where the process like execution is completed. So the next topic is about this process control block. So we know that process has like in memory 4 components, but how does a process get represented in operating system? So to represent a process in the operating system, we have something called this PCB, which is nothing but this process control blocks. Also, like in batch systems, you would call it as a TCB, task control block. Now, this PCB is a block of information. It provides like information about a process. So what all information a PCB gives is like listed here. So each process has a PCB which is like associated with it, and every PCB gives these information. So it gives all these information here. So it gives information about the process state. It'll show like what is the current state of the process. It'll also give the like details about this program counter. It'll tell you what is the next instruction which needs to be executed. And apart from that, it will also like show like all the CPU registers which are associated with the process. So this all these CPU registers are like necessary in order to perform a process switch. So we'll see what this process switch is in the next slide. And we'll also have this scheduling information. Like for example, if there are multiple processes in the in the like main memory, then the scheduler must have some kind of information to pick which process. So there might be like some processes having a higher priority. So all that CPU scheduling information is like shown by this PCB. And apart from that, we also have main memory management, memory management information, like the address space for every process. As we've like already seen. So in this like diagram, we've shown that there is some kind of address space which is like related to every process. So that information is also given by this PCB. And apart from that, we also have accounting information, which gives details like the process ID and the amount of CPU which is like used by the process. Apart from that, we also have IO status information, like a process might have multiple IO devices, like which it has like which are like allocated to that process. And apart from that, we'll also have like a list of files which are opened by that process. So all this information is stored in this PCB, and it relates to only one process. So every process has its own PCB. So here is an example of that process switch. So whenever there is a process switch, so assuming one process is like running, and it has like gone into waiting state. So once the process like switches from running state to waiting state, CPU must pick up another process and pull it into this running state. So that is what this process switch is about. So assuming we have two processes, P1, P0 and P1, and P0 is like executing currently. It is in its running state. So since it is in its running state, assuming there was like some system call or some interrupt which has like occurred. So since there is this interrupt which has like occurred, so if you like see here, whenever there is an interrupt, it will go back to ready state. So this whenever this interrupt occurs, P naught will have to like go to this idle phase. So it is like no more executing. So before it moves to the ready state, we'll have to like we'll have to save the contents of this PCB. So what we'll do is we'll just like before switching from P0 to P1, we'll have to save the state of this PCB 0. PCB 0 is nothing but the PCB of this particular process. So we'll save the state of this particular process into PCB, and then we'll reload state of the PCB of this particular process, and then process P1 will start executing. At that time, P0 will be like idle. Once P1 is like executing, there might be like another interrupt which is like which has like occurred, and this P1 will have to like save its state into its PCB, and then we'll reload the like state of PCB of this particular process, and P0 would start executing. At that time, P1 will be like idle. So here in this diagram, what we are trying to like see is basically there can be only one process which is running, and the other processes might be either waiting or they might be like in their ready states. So that's it I had in this video. In the next video, as I said, we'll be like talking a bit about the stack and heap in more detail. So thank you for watching.